All right, we're back on Pete's car again. So we're gonna finish up what we started with this front end. So again, we fixed the top, right? We tucked the top in, or we tucked the top out, shortened the control arms, we tucked them in. So now we're gonna do the wheel alignment on it. And obviously from moving the control arms in, everything gotta get shorter. So tie rod ends, so the steering, so don't let it down there, Josh. So this is gonna have to get cut shorter, right? And then we can make all our adjustments. So those are aftermarket tie rod ends with the hind joints on them. So we're gonna cut them up and do that, and then we'll let it down on these plates, line everything back up.
Get the file. And get the file for it.
I just no, I could use this section. So I figure we'd take an inch off. That's how much we shorten the control arm. So you know.
Yeah. Okay. Clean that up, we'll thread it back on and try.
We'll try one side and then we'll go cut the other side. All right, so we got the wheels all straightened out, both sides, and that's what we took off. So, inch on each side. Brings it right back into play. Steering wheel's nice and straight. Still got plenty of adjustment to move it around if we have to. So everything looks good. So right now it's sitting at ride height the way we want it. It's up on the table, so it's a little bit higher in the front. So I'm gonna get some measurements off it, and now that we could turn it and go straight, I'm just gonna lock them in place for a little bit. I'm gonna swap cars. So this one's coming off, this one's going back on. We're gonna swap them out. I'm still waiting for my transmission. This one's gonna go on the lift. We're gonna scale it, get all the measurements we need for all the ladder, all the 4-link adjustments, all the front end. This way I'll have it all punched into the computer. When we go to the track, we'll know what it's doing. And then when it's on the lift, I'm gonna get under it and set the MSD crank trigger on the bottom for the Holly. And then we'll set the distributor in. All right, so I'm gonna get all this back off. And then we also gotta we gotta put the nose on it, and we gotta figure out how to pull it onto the trailer. So I got an idea. We'll see if it works. See how that goes. All right, so here we go. Let me swap these cars out. I mean, it's getting late now. Probably do this tomorrow. Just spent like freaking almost 4 hours playing around with this front end just on this now. Another 4 hours playing around. So now we're gonna get that, swap it out, keep moving along. Good? All right. All right, 2783. But we gotta put the nose and all that stuff back on it. And yeah, sorry, hold on. All right, we're back at it with this thing. So we're setting these scales up right under the front bar. And got the other car off the lift. So We're gonna scale this first because it's easier to do right here on the ground real quick. I'm gonna put the nose back on it. We're gonna accommodate or calculate for fuel and water and see what this thing weighs so we know what kind of percentages we got. And we'll see how much it weighs. It looks like it's a heavy pig. We're gonna find out in a minute. All right, so with all the water and the fuel, still a pig. All right, and that's empty, no driver. Okie doke. All right, we're gonna get it off of the scales, get everything back out of the way, put it up on the lift, get all our measurements for the 4-link, go over all the 4-link stuff, go over all the nuts and bolts underneath it, and get it ready to go. All right, so got this thing up on the lift. Again, beautiful job. Jared at Anal Barn put this together. So we got to just go over a few things. They just put it all in. They didn't adjust anything. So we're going to make sure that everything's bolted on tight and secure. And then we're going to get all our measurements. We're going to take measurements from here. Like you see, well, this is all, everything's still loose, so nothing's tight. So we're gonna go over all that stuff, get all the measurements punched into the computer so we can keep track of everything. All right. All right, so first things first, we got the front where I want it. I gotta raise the back of the car up a little bit. Right, so we're gonna make that, get the ride height set first, and then we're gonna check the length of the arms for the bottom, for steering, rear steer, make sure those are straight, and then continue on with the next stuff. And we'll write everything down. All right. Takes a while, but you gotta play with it until you get it right. So, dropping that down 1 turn. Brought the back up to where it's level again. And then we're gonna get side to side with no rake in it so that it sits flat. If anything, a hair lower in the front, but not. All right, let's see what this looks like. All right, so I got Johnny in there. Now everything came right into place. So it's got a little bit on this side, but as soon as you sit in it, everything comes right back into where it's supposed to be. So now we're just gonna check the back. Again, everything looks nice and level. All the measurements are good. Shocks are all set. Nothing's hitting the floor. I mean, it was down so low that the upper control arm brackets were touching the floor. So we're good with that. And we got from the rocker to the rocker. From the rocker, we have, let's see if I can. So from the rocker to the floor, it's 6 3/4. So all the way around, samey, all the way around. All right, so that's that. You can get out. All right, so now we're good with that. Now I know that's good. Now I'm gonna make sure all the bars are in the right spot and measured out and all that good stuff. And then we can start writing some numbers down. Okay, so everything is tight. Checking the fluid on the rear. That's full. We'll put this back on here. Making sure everything's good. And double checking everything. So, got all the bolts on all the 4-link all tight. Johnny, just check 9/16. And just check all this other one. So, we got the pinion angle set right. We got the 4-link, we got the steer first, then you set this upper one, then you set that upper one, set the link, the 4-link with him in it. Now we're doing all this, so now we're gonna go over all those bolts in there, all those bolts in there. Check these two on the top and bottom. Check these brake line bolts, the nuts, ferrules. Make sure everything's tight. So if that's all tight, did you check and see if it's got a brake pedal? Nobody checked the brake pedal, right? All right, we're gonna check the brake pedal, make sure it's got no air in the lines or nothing stupid like that. Everything else should be good. All right, pinion angle set. All right, so right now we set everything up in neutral, so nothing has got any kind of preload or nothing in it. So when we do go to the track and make a little hit with it, see if it pulls left or right or anything stupid, which it shouldn't, and if it does, then we'll make some adjustments. All right, so that's how it sits. Everything sits nice and clean, nice and level. And we're gonna re-put the, what are those, limiters on the front. Do all that. Got enough clearance on the top now, so just driving, you know, up and down, don't hit the floor. And it's got plenty of clearance to go up. I'm gonna put it on the ground. I'm gonna take all the suspension travel out of it. All right, I'm gonna make it separate as much as it wants to separate and make sure we don't hit that bar down there. All right. All right, so we're doing a nut and bolt on everything because as you can see, everything's loose, okay? Again, we don't know what's tight and what's not, so we're checking everything. These two for the transmission. One had the wrong nut on it. So they're 7/16, and they had a 1/2-inch nut on it. So we're gonna change all this stuff over, make sure all that's correct. So we're gonna use 2 grade 8 bolts with washers like this. So these will be correct. All right. All right. Like that. Make sure the other one's like that. And then we're good. So we got the wheel alignment all done. We got all this stuff tight. Ride height tight. We tightened everything. And we went over every nut and bolt, put the limiters back on. I need to set the gap on that because that's too much. I could tell that just by eye, it's way too much. And then we tighten all these bolts, tighten all, everything's pretty, we're going over everything. Nut, bolts, everything. Johnny, you gotta check the motor mount bolts. These right here. 4 of those. And then that's it. The other ones are all done. All right, all the back is all done. Tightened all these. These we changed last time for the headers. Those are done. That's it. So we're gonna clean that up. Now we gotta fix the park mechanism. That's the other thing I forgot about. So it doesn't stay in park, so we gotta readjust this cable somehow. Oh, that's the next thing we're gonna do right now, after we're done with this little stuff here. All right, so that's what we ended up doing with that. That's all set. We're gonna drain the oil that's in it out of it and put new oil in it. We got a new filter. We got Brad Penn oil we're gonna put in it. And then I gotta set this. All right, so we got 5 quarts of Brad Penn, new Ford filter. Stick all that in there. And then we'll get the rest of this thing done. So, I put oil in it, and oil's dripping out of this corner like a pig over here. So, I took the valve cover off. I thought I filmed this and it must have not came through. So, I took the valve cover off. The bolts that go through the valve cover, some of them are longer. So they were bottoming out on the bottom of the head. So the cover wasn't even getting tight. So I took the cover off, took all the bolts out, cut all the bolts down, put the correct ones on the bottom and the correct ones on the top, because this one bolt is longer than that bolt kind of thing. So now they all stick out of the valve cover the same. And tighten all that down. So now we'll move on to the shifter.
Good.
All right.
Okay, let's see if we can see it.
3 hours later. All right, so let's start with this. So they had this in the wrong spot. So you see the witness marks, right? So we put this in the right spot. Then we had to move that all the way up.
What? Oh, okay.
That.
Yep.
And then this, I had on and off about 15 times already. So the angle, because of the floor, the angle wasn't right. So I ended up making this, right? So I could stick it on there and line it up until, so now you see, get your hand in there. See, now it goes in and out. So now it goes in and out nice and clean. See it?
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it. So now, where'd Josh go?
He went inside.
All right, you got to get back up in there and make sure it's in first gear and then run it through all the gears, and it should be good now.
Okay.
All right, I think we finally got it. Go ahead. Yep, yep, yep. That's park, reverse, park, yep, reverse, yep, yep, yep. That's it. That's it. Put it back in park. You make sure it locks in gear. Make sure it's all the way. That's it. It locked right in. Okay, good. Okie dokie. You come down now.
And
Yep. All right, so we got that all straightened out. On to the next problem. So, I got it set up on top dead center. Got it at 60 degrees before top dead center. We got to set up the cam sync and the crank signal. So this needs to be at 60. So I got it at 60 right now, and that's way off. And there's no adjustment left. So I got to take the whole front of the all this stupid, what you call it, off. I got to take the Pro Charger, all this gear drive off, and then move this ring. This ring has multiple holes in it. So we're gonna move it back one, probably one, possibly two holes in the opposite direction. And get it to get lined up with that. But I can't get this off because all this has to come off. All right. All right, so gotta take the Pro Charger off. So the gear drive, this whole gear drive and the head unit has to come off so I could get to the crank. And then the bolts on the crank. So it looks like I'm gonna take this off. I'm gonna take this off, take the tube, the inlet tube out first. And then see, probably gotta disconnect. Yeah, I gotta disconnect the fuel pump. And disconnect this air pump. All right. All right. This becomes a pain in the ass when you're doing this stuff. So I got that all disconnected. The pump hanging. Got the Pro Charger and the gear drive all off. Now we got to get these bolts out. And then this needs to go back. So you could see, I'll clean all this up. So that needs to line up. That needs to line up with one of these two. So obviously this can't move anymore, and that's all the way down. Can't go all the way up, it would only reach to about here. Can't go all the way down, it'll reach to about here. If you go up, it hits the gear drive. So I cracked these loose. So these are gonna come off. And then I'm gonna try to make it so it's in the middle. But this definitely has to come off now to get this over to here. So we want that in this position. Because if it was in this position, you can move this around and get it to the right spot. So right now we're at 60. All right, it's 40, 50, 60. All right. All right, so the thing with the spuds comes off. And like I said, this had multiple holes in it. So it was like that, right? So it was there. We're gonna move it back to there. And you can see it goes dead on. But if we move it back one more, let's see. No, I'm gonna go right there with it. So go right there. That'll be dead on, and then we gotta just make sure that it's, let's see, the rotation goes that way. Just gotta make sure it's in connecting with the falling. It's gotta be falling, not. So it's gotta be when it's falling away from it, it's gonna signal. So it's gonna be on that edge. Yeah, that'll work. All right, get that lined up, tighten all this stuff back up. And then we also got to do the cam sync for the distributor. All right, so took it apart again. So this is what we're looking for. So we want, the engine rotates that way, right? So we want the magnet on the falling edge. So if you look at that right now, it's at 60 degrees up on top. I actually verified that that is top dead center when that pointer is at top dead center. So we moved to 60 degrees. And then we have it at the falling edge. All right, so you got a leading edge. The magnet would be, this magnet would be here, the sensor. Falling edge is there. So it picks it up after, okay? Basically, it picks it up after. So as that comes by, it sees it, it sees it, it sees it, and then it's gone. If it comes the other way, it doesn't know, it doesn't know, it doesn't know, all of a sudden it shows up. So this way it shows, it sees it, and then it disappears on it. So that's the way most of these guys want these things set up. I'm gonna just check the gap. So this is all tight again, everything's all tight. I ended up taking this off one more time. We had it here, and I couldn't get it. It was just a little bit off because this sensor doesn't move. Now I got it here. Now I'm hoping that the blower and everything and the belt, nothing, that this doesn't interfere with anything. That's the only thing now. I'm gonna find that out in about 10 minutes. So all that's tight. I gotta check the gap on here one more time now because I moved everything around. And then I'm gonna try putting the blower back on, make sure the belt and everything clears. Oh, brother. All right, so when the belt is in place with the fuel pump, it's actually hitting, it's hitting that. I'm gonna take this back off. I'm gonna mill that down and give it some clearance. All right, so if you look at this, so the sensor, the actual sensor needs to come out a little bit, right? Just a hair. And then this line, it's gonna get milled off so that it clears the belt. The belt just touches that, so it gets in the way of the pump for the fuel pump. So we're gonna cut that, mill it right down. All right, so we'll get that back off and move it out of the way. All right, let's get this thing set up. So we got to make this hole bigger. So we're going to make this slotted to move the sensor over, right? And then we'll lop the end right off it. be it. Bring that over here. Make sure this fits. Beautiful. So it was there, and now we're bringing it here. That's all we need. All right, so that's good. Now I'm going to flip it over and mill the end up. So, got that thing milled off, moved it over. Now it lines up dead on. Beautiful. All right, so I can plug this back in here, put the blower back on, make sure it clears, we're good to go. All right, so before I put the blower back on, so now we got to set up the cam sync, so it's easier to do it with this because I can turn this. So I'm going to put the crank bolt back on the crank here, put a wrench on it. So now we're going to bring it to 195 before top dead center. So we're going to roll the motor back over to 195, and then we're going to make sure that the distributor is lined up. So what happens is there's a little tiny light on here, right here. So there's a little light that lights up. So same thing, distributor rotation, and we want it on the falling edge of that. So then once that's done, then they're in sync together. They know when they're going to fire. It knows when to fire number one, and so on and so on. And then from there, once you start it up, you just verify that this is dead on whatever we put it on. So we're going to set it at whatever, 30, right? And then we're going to set it at 30 in the Holly. So that'll be set up like that. And then you just got to make sure they're in sync. All right, so how we set it up again, we got to be at 195, right? So this harmonic balancer unfortunately doesn't have numbers on it, but it's slotted or degreed, but it's not no numbers. So went back, counted them all. So this one right here, this is 195. All right, so 195 is right there. That's 195. So now we're going to bring that to 195 to here. And then we're going to check that. Turn the power on and see where that thing lies, if it's even in the right time zone. All right, so make sure you got this in the right spot. So take it apart. That's the magnet. This is the eye, right, or the sensor. So when that lines up with that, so right now this was way off. I just turned it on. It was way back in here like that in the back. So we're gonna go like that. We're gonna bring the sensor over here to the front, right? And drop it back in place like that. So now that the sensor is here, I'm actually going to move it one more time. I'm going to bring it out here in the front. So we got So we'll have the sensor here in the front, so when this is dead center like this, at least this thing will be here, and we got plenty of room to turn it left and right. So we're gonna mark it, and then we'll know where it is, and then when you turn the ignition on, as you turn it, you'll see the little light flick on. Okay, so now we have power, and we got the light on. So now you're gonna go counterclockwise till it goes off. All right, so it'll go back on way over here. So this would be digital rising. Counterclockwise till it goes off, right? So counterclockwise till it goes off, and then back on. So that's it. So that's digital falling. Now we got that set up, we got that set up. I could turn everything back off, plug all this back in, plug all my wires back in, put the blower back on, and start hooking everything back up. All right, so we're draining the Pro Charger, and we're gonna change the oil in it because we don't know how much was in it or when it was done. So we got that. I'm gonna put oil in that, and we're also gonna check the oil in the gear drive. Plug is back in it. All the lines are back on it. Got this thing opened up and ready to go. All right, so the Pro Charger's full. The gearbox, or the gear, you take the plug out of there, you drain it out of here, and it takes synthetic 75/90. So it takes about 4 ounces of this stuff. This one's a little different than the one we got in our car. So we're gonna fill this one up, and then that'll be done. Yeah, almost done with this thing. Swapping cars.
Wait, say that again. Say it again.
All right, swapping some cars around. All the stuff on Pete's car that's on the lift is done. The only thing I gotta do is I gotta weld that piece on to pull it in. Gotta put this back in here so I can put my tranny back in.
Well, you wanted to fix that first?
Yeah. Let's go see what we can do with this real quick. All right, so we got that one back inside. Got this one coming in. Good to go. All right, last couple of things. And your new shirt, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
So we're taking the seatbelts out. They're expired a little bit.
This is my air conditioning shirt. It's hot out now.
2022. All right, so we're gonna send them out and get them recertified instead of buying new ones again, because they've never been run. So they should pass recertification, no problem. Which those guys will do it, no big deal. So I'll send those out, and we got to fix this throttle cable. That's all just flopping in the breeze. Everything else all back together. I'm gonna get those two things done. I gotta figure out how to get something to pull this thing in the trailer and lock it down. And then we're done with this car. We can start it up and get it running. Put that hose back on. Yep, we're almost there. All right, so the way this works is you have to take the whole cable apart. We put a bigger washer, another washer, and then the cable, right? This whole cable goes in from the inside of the car, and then that goes up against it. So this whole thing goes up inside the car now and feeds through the outer, what do you call? The outer cable. So, and then we'll hook it back up. All right. Yep. All right. We have throttle. Okay.
Put the tune up in it.
Almost ready to fire it up.